Howdy, y'all. So it's February 1st, and I have decided to do my February wrap up in vlog style. So I am going to check in every time I finish a book this month. So I have finished my first book of the month. I had started a couple days ago. So I read Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma, and boy howdy, I hated it. I had decided when I finished reading Pretty Girls, I was kind of in the mood for controversial reads. And I had added this to my TBR from Kayla's problematic faves video ages ago. And it had been available at one of my libraries previously. But when I went to check it out, they no longer had it. And so I just got really fixated on I wanted to read this book. So I paid $8 to buy the ebook. And I hated it. I really, really hated this book. It is a love story about a brother and a sister who fall in love. And I hated it. I will say, I grew up reading V.C. Andrews books. I read Flowers in the Attic as a middle schooler, so incest storylines are not an automatic no-go, immediate one-star thing for me. But I hated this story. None of it felt realistic. It was just so over the top dramatic while also being so incredibly boring. I did not like the writing style. I didn't like the characters. I didn't find it to be realistic. The stakes were all wrong. I didn't get it. I couldn't keep track of the timeline. I couldn't tell you anything about Maya, even though she is one of the narrators, which again, another multi-narrator story that I don't like. I think I prefer just one narrator. But I could tell you about Lehkonen, who is supposed to be very smart, and he had extreme social anxiety. But yeah, I don't know anything about Maya except she's his sister. But people love this apparently, according to the Goodreads. It has 4 stars on Goodreads. I was reading the reviews, and everyone was just talking about how emotional this book made them and how engaged they were in the story. And there was no plot. It was very clear what was happening from page 1. The situation that they were in, their mom sucked, but it just the stakes were all wrong for me. The whole situation was terrible. Not a good reading experience to start the month out on. So 1 star. Hello, it has been almost a week since I have talked to you last. It is the 7th of February, and I have just finished my second book of the month. I have been reading a lot of books, and that has I am reading so many books at this point that it has kind of split the amount of time I am spent reading each book to such a small amount that it's taking me forever to make my way through any book. But I listened to Sadie as an audiobook because I had heard such great, wonderful things about this audiobook specifically. And it was about a podcast, and I thought I would really enjoy listening to it in audio format. I will say, I thought the audiobook was wonderfully done. The book was just okay. I don't think I would have liked it more in book form. I'm glad I just listened to it. It was a relatively short audiobook. And I think the way the podcast was written was really well done. I have listened to a lot of true crime podcasts in my day, and I think it really nailed the tone of what an audio or what a true crime podcast sounds like. And I thought that was excellent. It's a full cast audiobook. I think honestly, if it's your cup of tea, I think you will like either the audiobook or the physical book. I think they're probably both wonderful if that's the kind of thing you're into. It just happened to be another, it's not a thriller necessarily, I don't suppose, but it is kind of murder mystery story. I need to stop reading them because I am not enjoying them. I will say the writing style was not like my favorite. I kind of found the like descriptive metaphors that were used by the author to be kind of like, I don't know, some of them just like caught my ear in a weird way, and I was like, what? And I will say, I think the dialogue was also a little stilted, especially in the podcast sections where there were interviews. Sometimes the dialogue just felt very, very stilted. But I also understand that you can't go full tilt into making it sound exactly like a real podcast and real interviews, because you still want it to be like understandable. You still want the listener to understand what is being said, and isn't focusing on like the atmospheric stuff so much. So I totally understand that. I will also say I was like near the end, I don't know, like the last quarter, I guess, I kind of really like, even though I understood like how the pieces mostly connected already, I thought the tension that was being built was pretty good. I did enjoy that. But I didn't like the ending very much. You don't get all the answers. That's pretty on brand for most true crime podcasts. You don't get all the answers because it's impossible to get all the answers. But you know, in a book, I'm typically looking for, especially like in a like thriller type of thing, I'm looking for more of a tied up ending. And I mean, there a lot was tied up and a lot did get explained, but I wanted a little bit more. So I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I think the people who like these types of stories will love this, either physically or audio book-y audibly. I don't think it was totally YA, but it definitely leaned more towards the YA, like younger audience, I feel like. But I think it was good. I think it's good for the audience that wants to read that book. And there was nothing like egregious or awful about it. It's just I keep reading books that I know I'm probably not gonna like, so that's a me issue. Hopefully, some of these other books that I'm reading might be better. Hello, it is February 8th, and I have finished 2 books today. The first I finished is called, as I wait for my app to load, Vann Nath, Painting the Khmer Rouge. This was a graphic novel. It took me quite a while to finish, even though it was pretty short. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I don't think it was bad by any means, but I really did not have the knowledge base to fully understand what was going on in the beginning, and to fully like comprehend and enjoy is a weird way to put it, because it is about like I guess death camps basically in Cambodia during the Khmer Rouge regime. Yeah, I don't think it was bad. I just didn't have the knowledge to fully appreciate what was being put forth in this book. So I feel weird giving it 3 stars, but that was my experience in reading it. And then the other thing I read is a webtoon called Life Outside the Circle. It is also obviously a comic that finished years ago. It is about 2 men who fall in love in the Finnish countryside, Really enjoyed it. Took my time with it for a while, and then the last couple days I have really pushed through and finished. Really enjoyed it. The art was wonderful. Just a really cute and wonderful love story. So those are the 2 books I finished. I'm finally kind of picking up the pace here a little bit. Howdy, it is February 13th, and I have DNF'd my first book of the month. I DNF'd Migrations by Charlotte McConaghy. This was, I know, on a lot of people's end of year favorites list from last year, and it really sounded like something I should have enjoyed. A near future, I don't want to say dystopia because it's not really dystopia, but near future climate change disaster sort of thing. Basically all the animals on Earth have died. I mean, not quite all of them. There are still animals, but it's like a significant portion of animals have died. And it is following a woman who is trying to track the last migration of a certain type of bird. And it also is like flashbacks to her past. And I guess she's supposed to be kind of like this unreliable narrator sort of vibe. But I got like 30% into it and I just was not feeling it. There wasn't enough world building for me. Life more or less seemed as it is now, which just didn't make sense to me if there was such a giant die-off of animals. I wanted a little bit more info. Like, really all it was like, animals are disappearing, animals are dying. There are no, like, there's a point where she talks about how, like, they don't really see birds anymore, and it talks about, like, how seeing animals, like, emotionally affects people, because they don't see them anymore. I didn't need it to be super in-depth world building, but I just wanted a little bit more than what was given to me because it just felt so much like the world we live in currently that I found it hard to believe that society would more or less be the same if like 75% of the animals on Earth had died. Yeah, I don't know. I just wasn't clicking, and I really didn't care about the main character all that much. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It didn't click, and it was really disappointing. I thought this was going to be a book I loved. So many people talked about how emotionally it affected them and how, like, atmospheric, and they just loved this book. And it was under 300 pages, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna fly through this. I'm gonna love this book. And unfortunately, that just was not the case for me. I get why people love this, and I think it's maybe one of those books that it either grabs you from the start or it doesn't. And I kept expecting it to build into something more that would grab me, but it's basically what it is from the beginning is what it continues to be. So, you know, I didn't finish the book, obviously, so I don't know, maybe it does get more interesting, but it's such a short book, but I was struggling to even get myself to pick it up to read a chapter. So I don't know, I just DNF'd it. I didn't want to keep fighting to read it anymore. But I totally get why people love it. I think the writing is lovely. I do think it has a great atmosphere. If you're not looking for like world building, and you're like looking more for like I don't want to say a character study. I do think there is plot there, but something more character based. I think people will like it. I get why people like it kind of in these times that we're in currently. You know, climate change is real. But yeah, unfortunately, it just didn't work for me. I just really don't like or care for the main character, who's like the driving force of this book. And I was just looking for something a little different, I feel like. Yeah, and I don't know, maybe I would have got more information if I kept reading, but I just couldn't keep reading. So this month has been kind of a dud reading wise. I'm hoping I can get one good book in this month, but we'll see. Hi, it is February 15th, and I have finished another book. This is book number 5. I actually finished it yesterday, but it was late and I couldn't record until today. But I finished the second season of Lore Olympus. I gave it 4 stars, mostly because 1, it's not a finished, completed season yet, and 2, I don't know. It just, I don't necessarily think it was worse than the first season. It just, I read it very slowly, and I think it kind of tempered my reaction to it a little bit. Originally, I was trying to only read 1 episode a day, so I could maybe try and make it out of the, like, finish it at the time she was coming back from hiatus, but there came a point where I just wanted to consume it very quickly, and so that's what I did. I really liked it. It's a continuation of the retelling of the kidnapping of Persephone. I don't want to get too much into details because I don't want to like spoil stuff. I did think the beginning of season 2 was a little bit slower. There was like almost 10 episodes, I think, before we even saw Persephone. But there were so many fun moments. I really enjoyed it. I love seeing Persephone and Hades' relationship growing. I hope that the back half of the season we start to see some shitty people get their comeuppance. And yeah, the cliffhanger, the mid-season finale was intense. But it was a fun read. I enjoyed it. I can't wait till it comes back from hiatus so I can keep reading it. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Lore Olympus Season 2. Hi, just a quick clip. I finished Wuthering Heights yesterday. I'm not going to do too many thoughts here, just because I did film a whole vlog on me reading the last 100 pages. But I gave it 3 stars. I did not like it as much as Jane Eyre. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I have a new DNF. It is February 18th, and last night I decided to DNF Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov. A friend and I were buddy reading this, and I just couldn't do it. It really seems like something I should like. A 999-line poem by the reclusive genius John Shade, an adoring foreword and commentary by Shade's self-styled Boswell, Dr. Charles Kinbote, a darkly comic novel of suspense, literary idolatry, and one-upsmanship and political intrigue. I felt like it was going to be like House of Leaves, where it was this fake literary work, and then treating it like it was real. And that is kind of what it is, but I just could not get into the writing style. I could not get into Dr. Charles Kinbote's very verbose writing. I couldn't get into it. I could not get into it. I just decided to DNF it because I was not enjoying myself. I am going to keep the book though. Usually in a situation like this I would donate or drop it off at the little library that's by my house. But the cover is really pretty, so I'm going to keep it. And maybe I'll try to read it again later at some point. Maybe it just was not working for me at this moment. But it's a DNF for now. Hello, it is February 19th. I have wet hair, so it is up. I have finished the Anthropocene reviewed I have finished the Anthropocene reviewed book, which I listened to in audiobook format. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. It was maybe more of a 3-star listening experience because I listened to the entire podcast before listening to the audiobook. And it is basically the entire podcast but put into a book form. There were 3 new essays that I had not heard that were not part of the podcast that were in the book, and I enjoyed listening to those, but I had listened to it already basically and did not realize it. I think it's good. I really enjoyed the podcast, so the stuff in the book I enjoyed also. It just I literally just finished listening to the podcast in this month, I think. So it did not bring a whole lot new to me. I'm glad I did not personally buy it, but I enjoyed it. I think people who have not listened to the podcast would enjoy listening to it or reading it. I kind of actually wish I had chosen to read it, just to get the information in a different way. But I chose to listen to it because I had listened to the whole podcast, and I was like, oh, I want John Green to keep reading it to me. But it was more like I just listened to John Green read it to me in a different way. Anyways, but I enjoyed it. It's fine. It's good. So I'm going to give that 4 stars. I'm trying to record outside because it's so beautiful and I don't want to go into my basement office. But everything is being so loud. And it's making it hard for me to focus on my words. And I don't know if you can hear me. This is annoying. Hi, it's February 23rd, and I'm grouchy because I've tried to record this clip 300 times, and I have been forced into the basement to record it because the wind will not stop. The weather is beautiful, but everything is loud. All the birds won't shut up, which is usually great, but not great when I'm just trying to record this video clip. I didn't want to have to go into the basement, but here I am. Anyways, so, sorry, I'm grouchy. Let's take a breath. I listened to When I Am Through With You by Stephanie Kuehn. This is a book that Kayla recommended in one of her more recent reading vlogs. And none of my libraries had it in book form, and only one of them had it as an audiobook. Because I had already bought Forbidden and did not like it, I decided just to listen to it as an audiobook, even though I typically do not enjoy fiction in audiobook format. And that was kind of the case here too. I struggled to keep my focus on it. I zone out in fiction in audiobook format. And there was quite a number of characters, which made things difficult for me because I would zone out, or I found it hard to keep the different characters separated in my brain, especially like it was narrated by one man because the main character is a boy, a teen named Ben, so it's like a boy main character, and all his female voices sounded the same to me, so all the women kind of blended together for me. So I'm gonna give it 3 stars, but I think it maybe had potential to be 4 star. It's probably more of a 3.5, but it had potential for 4 if I had read it. I just didn't want to waste more money on a YA book that I could have potentially hated because I hated Forbidden. So yeah, I didn't buy it. Because ebooks just feel like a waste if you don't like them. None of the bookstores locally had a physical copy, so I would have been forced to buy an ebook. And like, I can't donate an ebook when I'm done with it and don't like it. It just takes up space in the cloud for the rest of eternity. Anyways, so it is kind of a wilderness story. It's focused around a guy named Ben, and his relationship with his girlfriend, and kind of the troubling events in his life. And then it kind of turns into a wilderness survival story, which I do tend to like. There were parts of it that I really enjoyed. There's a climactic event that kind of happens in the middle, and all the fallout comes from that big event. And I didn't really like that very much. So it kind of dampened how much I could enjoy this story, because I found that big event to be goofy, is I guess the best way I could put it. And it wasn't over dramatic enough for it to be fun goofy. It just felt silly to me as a grown woman, because this is definitely YA, I would say. It's high schoolers that are in this survival event, and it is told in a way that you're like, someone is going to die from the beginning. It's told by Ben, and he's talking about this in the present, foreshadowing things that are going to come. Which I tend to really like narration like that. It was one narrator, so I liked that. It had potential. I just think the fact that I was not willing to spend money on it because I had already had a flop this month kind of limited how much I could truly enjoy this story. So I'm going to give it 3. I think maybe it had potential for a higher rating. But like I said, that one main event doesn't change from audio to a physical format, so I don't know if I would have enjoyed that event more if I had read it and I had a better grasp on all the characters because I was physically reading it, or if it still would have felt a little silly to me and kind of dampened my ability to enjoy the fallout from that event. Hi, it is February 25th, and I am in a different location because, surprise, my office flooded 2 nights ago, and there is currently water mitigation processes going on. So I will be, I don't know, recording the last couple clips here, probably. I have finished another book. I finished The Deep by Nick Cutter, who is the author, well, the pen name of the author who wrote The Troop, which I loved, and I did not love The Deep. It is about a man who goes to an underwater, I want to call it a space station because that's how I kept imagining it. It's like in the Marianas Trench, to help his brother, who he got a message from saying to come help him in this underwater station. It started out really strong. It really did. I thought this was going to be maybe not a 5-star, but I thought it was going to be at least a 4-star read. I read it because I was looking for something I was definitely going to enjoy, and I had saw people talking about enjoying this, and it did not work for me. It definitely gave me, it kept reminding me of Alien, like something in this enclosed space is hunting them, but unfortunately it was just a lot of dreams and flashbacks, and it wasn't very clear what was and wasn't happening, and it just didn't work for me. And there was also this like pandemic element, like the reason they went down into this underwater lab was because there is this disease, and they thought the cure to this disease was underwater. Someone's about to walk through the door. They thought the cure was underwater, and I expected that disease to play more of a role and be like a thread through this whole story, and it just wasn't. It was very much a I don't know, like a trapped with an unseen enemy type story. And it was very internal, like not telling what is and isn't real. And it just didn't work for me, unfortunately. So, 2 stars. Hello, hi. It is February 27th, and I have finished 2 books. Last night I finished a cooking book that I was reading, The Good Book of Southern Baking, I think is what it's called. I'll put it somewhere here. Because someone had recommended this book ages ago. Maybe Jamel Bowie, I don't know. It had been sitting on my TBR, tagged on my TBR on Libby for a while. So I was just reading it a little at a time. And I gave it 4 stars, I think. I can't remember. 3 or 4 stars? I think I gave it 4. It's baking, biscuits, pies, stuff like that. I ended up actually buying it as a Google ebook because I wanted the Google points. So that's why I bought it and read it. But the big read that I finished, and will probably be my last book of the month since there's only 1 day left, The Bluest by Toni Morrison. Wow. I loved The Bluest 4.5 stars. I read Beloved a few years ago, and I'm pretty sure I gave that 5 stars, but Goodreads has eaten my rating of it, so I don't actually know for sure if it was a 5-star read or not, but I did like Beloved a little. I remember liking Beloved a little bit more than I liked The Bluest, so that's why I'm going to give this 4, but wow, I still absolutely love this, and I'm really glad I managed to fit it in this month, because this month has been a shit show. It's just been a lot of bad books and books I did not enjoy reading this month. So I am so glad I got to read The Bluest. I managed to fit it in, and I'm finishing the month on a strong note because it was so beautiful. There is so much in this book that seems like I should not like it. So there's like a whole chapter where there are no quotes around dialogue. There's a lot of flashbacks, which typically I tend to not like. She uses a lot of different, narrative techniques, like writing styles. And for it being only 206 pages, it seems like it could get very muddled and confusing. But that is really not the case at all. This is beautifully written. The way Toni Morrison writes is just, wow. She was so talented. I don't know what to say. I will say the plot in this is pretty light. It's very character driven, so there is a plot going through it, but that's not what makes you keep turning the pages. That's not what the story is. The plot is not the most important part of the story. It is these flashbacks of these characters and how their life ended up in this place, and how they ended up in this moment, and how it has affected all these events in their lives, how it has affected the choices they're making through a year, I suppose, because it's broken into seasons. So it is about the characters, and it is just absolutely wonderful. A really good book. I'm so glad I read it. Wow. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm gonna actually donate this copy because I don't know if you can tell. It's scratched up on the cover. I bought this from the used bookstore. So I plan on buying my own copy, a pretty copy. I don't know. I haven't looked into the different covers or anything like that, but I would like to buy a at least not scratched up copy, and probably buy a copy of Beloved too, because I really liked Beloved. Anyways, that's probably my last book of the month, because I currently am reading a 400-page book that I started 2 days ago. Don't think I will finish by tomorrow. And then I'm gonna start cast tomorrow probably. And I definitely won't finish that in a day. So that's it for February. And so I'll probably be back shortly with some stats and summary stuff of the month. So see you in a little bit. Hi, this is going to be my last clip. Like I said in a previous clip, my office flooded and is currently out of commission. I'm not sure where I'm going to record these next couple weeks, but I wanted to film this last little clip about my stats for this month. So I read 11 books this month, which is more than I had realized. I only read 9 last month, so that's pretty good, especially because this month is short and I'm filming a day before the month ends. Okay, so I read 11 books. I DNF'd 2 books. I averaged 9.5 days per book, but Olympus took me 26 days while I was actively trying to read it slowly. So if I take that one out just as being like a weird outlier, it took me 7.5 days. So just a little over a week for each book, which again is pretty impressive since it's a short month. So I'm surprised I read as many books as I did with that kind of reading. But I was reading like 4 books at a time, like through most of this month, because I was not enjoying like anything I was reading. So I was reading more books to try and find anything that was good that I actually wanted to read. So yeah, that. And on that same note, I averaged 3.1 stars per book that I read, which is less than I read last month, or less good than I read last month, because I was rating stuff 3.5 stars on average last month, so a little bit of a decline in quality. So my lowest rated book was Forbidden, which was the first book I read this month, and yeah, I did not enjoy it. And the highest rated book, I had a couple 4 stars, no 5 stars. So Life Outside the Circle, which was a queer love story in Finland. Lower Olympus Season 2, which is not finished, also romance comic deal. The Anthropocene Reviewed audiobook. The Good Book of Southern Baking I gave 4 stars, and The Bluest Eye I gave 4 stars, which by far was the best book I read this month. I loved The Bluest Eye. And then I just wanted to touch on my TBR a little bit, just because I wanted to have a better way of keeping track of whether I was actually reading stuff on my TBR. So I just want to say that my TBR shelf on Goodreads is at 115 books right now. I think it was at 114 at the beginning of the month. So I know I was reading stuff off of it, but I kept adding stuff. I know I added at least 3 books to my TBR this month by Indigenous authors, because I still have not read a book by an Indigenous author this month, which I really want to do. That's one of my goals this year, is to read more books by Indigenous authors. So I added 3 books to my TBR, and it's only sitting at 115. So I definitely was reading stuff off of it. And then I was also reading stuff that wasn't on my Goodreads TBR, but were on other TBRs, like The Bluest Eye. I did not have marked on Goodreads, but I had on my physical TBR shelf. Let's see what else. The Good Book of Southern Baking was marked on Libby to be read, but was not on my Goodreads TBR. And I'm Through With You, I had added to my Goodreads TBR and then immediately took it off because I read it that month. So I would like to do more of that too. If I find something that I want to read, just kind of reading it now when I find it instead of bloating my TBR. Wuthering Heights was also a physical TBR, but I think was also marked on Goodreads. Sadie, I think, was marked on Goodreads too. But I might have just been holding that in my head and I noticed it was available at the library and read it then. I know it wasn't marked on Libby. In the Deep was also, I think, on my TBR. I'm not sure. It is another thing that was at least floating around in my brain as something I wanted to read. Whether it actually made it to the TBR or not, I am unsure. So I'm hoping to keep better track of that in this coming month to see if I'm actually keeping up on my TBR goals. So I just want to say here on February 27th, my TBR is sitting at 115 books, and I hope it will decrease next month. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Let me know if you enjoyed this. I enjoyed this. I like this more vlog style. If you like it, let me know. If you'd rather I sit down next month and just go through stuff with you instead, I can do that too. Hopefully I'll see you next week. Hopefully my office will be back in commission sooner rather than later. And I'll see y'all later. Bye!